Nigeria moves to end farmer header clashes as federal government prepares for ranching.
Today, the solution is here.
Senate denies receiving jumbo palliatives for legislators.
And World Food Programs pledges support to fight against hunger in Nigeria.
An initiative aimed at equipping our personnel with advanced skills and techniques for handling complex security challenges across the country.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall review Nigeria's participation at the just concluded G20 summit in India.
All right, so the G20 group summit has come and gone. But just to remind you of some of those members, they comprise the most advanced economies in the world. Countries who share some common characteristics, including, of course, they are the most industrialized nations and together account for about 80% of the world's GDP and about 75% of global trade.
That's right. Now, of course, some refer to them as the big boys on the global stage because they exert a lot of influence on global affairs. Now, during their annual meetings, they discuss issues that relate to their countries and also of those that encompass general development around the world.
So this year's G20 summit was hosted by India under the focus of One Earth, One Family, One Future. Now, top issues discussed at the summit include world economy, food security, climate change, and, of course, energy, fiscal development, health, and digitization, including so many other issues.
Of course, the Russia-Ukraine conflict was equally discussed, and the summit emphasized the importance of observing the UN Charter as well as responding to the consequences of the conflict on the global economy and food security. Our participants equally focused on the importance of reducing poverty, inequality, while accelerating efforts to achieve the SDGs.
Well, Nigeria is not a member of the G20, but it attended the summit courtesy of an invitation extended to it by the group in line with its tradition. Other non-members include Egypt, Bangladesh, Netherlands, Comoros Island, the African Union, Oman, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, international organizations such as the UN, the AFDB, I beg your pardon, the WTO, the WHO, OECD, and also EU.
All right, now Nigeria's participation at the summit was significant because it was the first for President Bola Tinubu, who assumed office a little over 3 months ago. Now, the summit provided him the opportunity to meet and interface with other world leaders and share his vision for Nigeria, particularly in international politics. Now, the AU, that's the African Union, was officially admitted as a member of the G20 at the India summit.
That was one of the landmarks outcome of that summit. But on the sidelines, President Bola Tinubu engaged in other bilateral talks and also stepped up engagements with key economic partners. He hosted a business roundtable with Indian investors where, of course, some $14 billion worth investment was also secured.
Now, in separate engagements with Germany, South Korea, and India, President Tinubu shared his renewed hope agenda and also put forward his reforms, which will further open up Nigeria for business in key sectors such as agriculture, technology, manufacturing, defense, oil and gas, among others. Now, the president secured commitments by the partners to invest in Nigeria in the coming years.
Indeed, and top government officials who were on the president's entourage equally met with their Indian counterparts to discuss some specifics of India-Nigeria relations and the benefits derivable from that. The President reportedly met with Nigerians living in India, either for economic, educational, or other purposes, and challenged them to be good ambassadors of Nigeria and indeed of Africa, and also endeavor to acquire necessary education experiences and best practices which could be deployed when they get back home.
With the summit over, can Nigeria begin to take a look at the gains arising from its participation? And more importantly, how does Nigeria leverage on the contacts and bilateral talks held in the course of the summit? And when will the investment promises begin to manifest, or what do we need to do to ensure that those promises begin to manifest? And more also, how can Nigerian businessmen take advantage of the reinvigorated Indo-Nigeria relations for greater development of Nigeria? And what should Nigeria be doing to enhance its own business environment for investments?
Indeed, very, very germane questions, and these are questions that we will try to interrogate today on Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, we do expect that the gains, will not materialize in the immediate, but of course, plans and templates to achieving them would be very, very much appreciated, and that's part of what we will try to find out as we discuss the fallout of the G20 summit which held in India, where of course Nigeria's participation was loaded. Here on the network service, I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, and it's Friday's Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Kingsley Osadola. It's my pleasure to also join my colleague in welcoming you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, it's the last for the week, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the NTA from our headquarters studios here in Abuja. In the course of the program, we'll take the highlights of the morning news shortly, and thereafter it will be business and newspaper review with Chukwudi Okole Ubaja. Now, let's sit back and take the morning news from Frama Panye. Good morning, Frama.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigerians. Here is the morning news. A solution to the long-standing farmer-herder conflict seems to be near, as the federal government says it is set to acquire land for ranching across the country. President Bola Tinubu said this as he received a report and blueprint from committee members of the National Conference on Livestock Reforms and Mitigation of Associated Conflicts in Nigeria.
And today, the solution is here. Imagine you create this opportunity. Your vet doctors are busy, gainfully employed. The private sector, the education opportunity for the others.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu says Nigeria has no reason being poor as a country richly endowed with natural resources and hardworking people. The president, who received a delegation of leaders from Rivers State earlier today at the State House, says he is ready to reverse the trend and build a better Nigeria.
Our people are expecting a lot from us. How much longer is lamentation possible? I'm not the president that will give excuses.
And ahead of the G77 plus China Leaders Summit, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima has expressed the desire of the Tinubu administration to deepen existing bilateral relations with the Republic of Cuba. He stated this during a courtesy visit to the Vice President of Cuba, Salvador Valdez Mesa, at the Palace de Revolution in Havana.
Specific medications that are only produced in Cuba, and this is the result of the development of our technology and our science. In every field where we have a common interest, and mostly in the field of cooperation, I would like to say that we are willing and ready to deepen our cooperation and our relations.
The Senate has described as unthinkable the allegations on the purported allegation of 100 million naira to each legislator in the National Assembly. A statement from the Chairman, Senate Committee on Media and Publicity, Senator Yemi Adaramodu, says there is no such allocation and neither is it budgeted for. He expressed unhappiness that those behind the allegations want to bring the Nigerian Parliament to disrepute and pitch members against the Nigerian public. The statement urged the public, especially Nigerian workers, to disregard the unscrupulous elements as legislators are eternally with the people. It warned that the National Assembly shall henceforth not hesitate to take constitutional and legal actions against merchants of rumors and ill will against the lawmakers. On security, any attempt by unscrupulous elements to sabotage the economic revival of the country will be confronted with stiff opposition. France's Form reports that the acting IGP Kayode Egbetokun gave the warning at a meeting with strategic police managers, while assuring government of its readiness in providing the needed security and enabling environment for all legitimate businesses and other economic activities in the country.
An initiative aimed at equipping our personnel with advanced skills and techniques for handling complex security challenges across the country.
The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, says it has commenced grid restoration nationwide with power supply now available in West, North Central, South South, Southeast, and a large portion of northern parts of the country. This follows the total grid collapse that occurred at about 12:35 a.m. earlier yesterday, causing a nationwide outage after more than 421 days of consistent grid stability. In the statement, TCN says the collapse, which occurred after a fire incident on Kayenji-Jeba 330 kV line, is to being investigated with a view to forestall future occurrence and strengthen the grid. The last total system collapse recorded was on 20th July 2022, from then to 13th of September 2023. Now, a 15-man Interministerial Committee for the country's 63rd independence anniversary has been inaugurated by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. Kenneth Nanim reports that the SGF expressed confidence in the committee's ability to deliver on the mandate.
Time is of essence regarding the preparation of the 63rd Independence Anniversary celebration. The proposed activities for the celebration would be subject to finalization by the Interministerial Committee.
And that's the news for now. The program continues shortly after this break.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit business now. The Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research, NIFO, is working with a private entity to scale up Nigeria's palm oil production. Alika Panache Adwa also reports that the PPP arrangement is also to ensure food security and economic growth.
Nigeria was ranked the world's largest producer of palm oil, with a global market share of more than 50% in the 60s. In recent years, Nigerian production costs dropped from 3 to 5% of total global output, based on the United States Department of Agriculture estimates, which has led to the import of more than 455,000 metric tons of palm oil, worth $409.5 million by manufacturers. The signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research and an agro-allied company is geared towards reforming the palm oil industry. The executive director of the institute, Dr. Celestine Ikunube, is optimistic that the new partnership will strengthen the core mandate of the institute, as well as double the production level of the nation's palm oil over time. The path, according to some industry players, is expected to boost the nation's yields and invariably create more jobs.
I want us to do what I called farm rescue, which I started as advisor on Niger Delta. I started farm rescue program, where I worked on getting support to go to every oil palm farm which has been abandoned, and you give them facility to prune the oil palm, rejuvenate it, use the manure from there, and then plant other things intercrop while the oil palm sprouts and you harvest again.
Let's take a look at Thursday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business news package on Good Morning Nigeria. Coming up next, newspaper review.
Let's welcome Chukwudi Okoligbaja to Friday's newspaper review. Chukwudi, good morning.
Good morning. I like to popping up Friday because I'm really happy it's Friday. I did some weeding over the week, and I got cranky.
Weeding.
Of course, yes. I will take a photograph of me working next time so that believability is not an issue. Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning, Chukwudi.
How are you?
Very well.
You didn't say good morning, Farmer Chukwudi. There's a Farmer Obole who is trending in Nigeria now. The guy is making waves, training young people to become zealous entrepreneurs in farming.
I hope you're not doing only subsistence farming, Chukwudi, because we're trying to move away from that.
Start one
to
day
feed
at a
the
time.
nation.
One day at a time.
Which crops do you cultivate?
You see, Kingsley, that's a wonderful question. Where I come from, we are cassava and yam farmers. Here, God has blessed people so much. You plant corn at the beginning of the year, you harvest it, after about 3 months, you're able to plant beans on the same soil again. You plant potato, you're able to harvest after 3 months. You're able to plant groundnuts. Yeah, okay, you do groundnuts first, you can join potatoes later.
So you're doing cropping.
Yes, this part of Nigeria is blessed, Kingsley. I'm not making it up.
So which do you do?
I decided to spread. I'm still planting beans, for instance. Yes, you plant beans today, for instance. You make sure you spread. You spray the place within 3 days, so that the shoot does not get hurt. But well, it's an interesting discovery.
Do you buy fertilizers?
No, we're not using fertilizer yet. Some people are, but the soil is still reasonably fertile. Yeah.
So we now know where to go when we want to get.
But is it? Where was the land previously farmed? Was it previously farmed? I'm trying to get into the hazard of overcropping.
Yes, that's a good one. The hazard of overcropping. What happens is that because the semi-desert scenario is already coming in here, you don't even need to clear any place with a heavy equipment before you farm. You spray and shrubbery dies after some time. You now have to hoe to turn the soil so that reasonable amount of manure is still found within the soil there.
All right. Let's get back to newspaper review. Chukwudi, thank you.
I'm happy I excited you a bit.
All right, let's begin with the Punch newspaper. And it leads with the story, Nigeria's debt jumps by 75% in 3 months, hits 87 trillion naira. And it comes with 2 riders there. How CBN loans to FG, new debts, promissory notes raise public debt by 37 trillion naira between April and June. And the second rider is Tinubu's reforms will improve debt sustainability. DMO assures Nigerians as latest figure overshoots agency projection by 10 trillion naira. And the picture story, quite alarming. The cannabis and live ammunition during the parade of suspects arrested in connection with the items by police in Sokoto. That was on Thursday. And the number, the sheer magnitude, the sheer number of small arms and light weapons in circulation in the hands of non-state actors, in the hands of unlicensed criminals is quite alarming and frightening. Just look at that number. It's crazy. It's crazy. And thank God the security agents are doing, quite well in, arresting those suspects. Now, NURTW President, 21 others arrested for alleged killing. It's on page 4. Benue Court remands 20-year-old man for organ harvesting. It's on page 5. And Jega-led committee, Kebbi, others demand livestock ministry. Let me quickly take you above the nameplate now. Electricity consumers slam FG over power grid collapses on page 18. Manufactured goods imports gulp $6.7 billion in 6 months. That's according to a report. And Tinubu orders NAMI's retirement, appoints Adedeji as FIRS chair. That's from the Punch newspaper. And let me quickly glide through The Nation. The Nation's headline is DHQ, police turn heat on all thieves and economic saboteurs. 1 million liters of stolen crude seized in 1 week. And IG orders clamp down on firearms production. That's the lead story. Just above the nameplate again, Adedeji replaces NAMI as FIRS chair. Agency boss on terminal leave. We won't allow one-party rule, says PDP, and clashes. Ganduje panel seeks creation of livestock ministry. Okay, there are other stories. How to prevent another national grid collapse. It's also trending on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And you see the picture story there. That's of course, members of the Rivers State Executive Council, led by Governor Similaye Fubara and the Deputy Governor, Dr. Ngozi Odo. And also, I see other traditional rulers there. I see, of course, Sergeant Awuse, who is the paramount ruler of Emoha Kingdom. And I see Osiji Okocha also there, and several others. Tinubu, we will create wealth for all Nigerians, and President hails advisor, the advisor now is in quotes, Wiki, for hitting the ground running as FCT minister. Those are the stories trending on the front page of The Nation. Kingsley has the others.
Well, the blueprint has the same stories virtually that you read from the Punch and The Nation. So I'll just skip most of the stories on the front page of the blueprint and take a few of them. Troops neutralize 151 terrorists, arrest 456 in 1 week, and 76 hostages rescued. Troops neutralize 151 terrorists, arrest 456 in 1 week, and 76 hostages rescued. Bago flags off 200 billion naira Mina Urban Renewal Road Project. Fight against corruption tops Tinubu's priorities. That's according to Malagi. Fire outbreak at Kenji Jeba 330 kV line, cause of 15-hour power outage. That's according to the federal government. And nationwide blackout will be investigated. TCN details on page 6. Now, leadership on Friday, that's the same story. So I'll just take the lead. It says 2 weeks after 180 billion naira palliatives, hardship persists in states. Governors foot drag as residents question distribution processes. Senate capers NLC over alleged 100 million naira palliatives. Nigeria has no business with poverty. It's according to President Tinubu. LP and Soyinka trade words over party's defeat in 2023 polls. Libya flood death toll hits 11,000. and 20,000 missing. Biden's son, Hunter, indicted of federal gun charges, page 85. Chukudi.
Kingsley, thank you so much. I'm starting on a rather morbid note, but let's see if we can give it some color. I don't know, do you listen to pop music from time to time? Did you ever hear one that went this way? Then he gets to one portion of the song. It's I'm talking about the guy they call Morbid. He died.
He died
Ilario Olua, was the surname? That's Ilario Olua Aloba. I like that particular song. My children told me, Daddy, instead of Ibianu Makboto in this thing, go to Tubidi and download the song. And I did. And I would always dance to it. Now, the police are saying they're going to look into the circumstances surrounding the death of this young man. Following something they discovered, a document they discovered on Twitter, okay, they now call it X, which suggested that some people at a point sent him threats and all that. But you want to ask, has the morbid anatomist, carried out anything that suggests foul play, prompting the police to say they're going to investigate? But I like the fact that they're looking into it. They want to be diligent about it. I am really going to miss Morbid.
Yeah, it's been buried.
It's been buried, yes. But they could have performed an
autopsy.
An autopsy.
A couple of days ago in Lagos.
Worked on him.
But there was also an account that he had some mental health challenges.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, there was another account. So, but if there were threats to his life, and the police are on it, I think it's useful for the police to continue with that investigation.
Very important.
Could those threats have worsened his mental health?
Exactly. There could be death by instigation. Remotely. Yes. You know a man is mad. You can drive him madder by the things you say to him. So you could be actually accused of escalating the issue for the person. But Kingsley, there was a story you mentioned, is it Plateau, where somebody is being hounded or has been arrested for organ harvesting.
Yeah,
the lady went for,
Yes, I saw that.
I am saying this because there's another story here that says that a magistrate court sitting in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, on Thursday remanded 20-year-old Andosa Agbadu at Federal Maximum Correctional Center for conspiracy and procurement for organ harvesting. We need to warn people at this stage. When people go for operations that are major, particularly when it's around the abdomen and all that, you need to check what got taken away. Why am I saying this? There's a female doctor, I still praise her courage. The brother needed a kidney, and she donated the kidney, but it still did not save her brother. I call her the Amazon. What it means is that it is true that you can survive on one kidney. And doctors without scruples could actually take out a kidney knowing that the other one can serve you still. So, because we're beginning to hear these things, I think we need to become more diligent as well. Some people have no conscience. It just occurred to me that people might need to begin to be more diligent about what gets taken out of,
Yeah, diligence is important, but it's also for the full weight of the law to be brought down heavily upon whoever has done this. Look, the specialists who deal with the kidney, they are called nephrologists. And it isn't just any and everybody that can perform the surgical operation required.
Sure.
I know then somebody can talk about cryonics and say, how do you preserve the kidney? How do you then trade it off? I know that. The case of in Plateau was the one involving a man called Noah Kekere, who was posing as a medical doctor. The NMA in Plateau has said, look, he wasn't one of them, that he was a quack. And he had harvested, allegedly, the kidney of a patient, a female patient, who came into the hospital where he had been operating. Again, we also have to ask this question: for how long can these quacks operate beneath the radar and then they get discovered? How long what kind of diligence is there in moving around from time to time, checking out, one, it is the responsibility of the State Ministry of Health.
That's it.
State Ministry of Health. And then when the police or the DSS get intelligence, and the next thing is to probably set up a sting operation and put these guys out of business before they kill more human beings. It is not only when it affects somebody close to us that we begin to scream.
Kingsley,
Yes.
you know, you raised issues regarding this matter, you know, a few days ago. 2 issues that you raised. How come this man was able to gather, you know, the personnel needed to conduct the surgery?
Exactly. Surgery
Again,
is teamwork.
exactly.
That was what I wanted to add.
Then you're talking about the equipment. He didn't just use knife and, you know, he got the equipment to do that. Then another revelation is that he didn't even study medicine. He studied accountancy or something quite different, odd.
Then how could they have such a free reign?
That I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It's I don't know. I mean, it's beyond words. And just before we round off, the issue about proliferation of small arms and light weapons, you see the kind of ammunition, live ammunition, and of course drugs that the police, security agencies are seizing from suspects. It's quite troubling. It goes to show that even the ECOWAS Convention on, you know, prohibition of proliferation of small arms and light weapons, yes, it's not been observed, you know, or it's observed in the breach by member countries. Otherwise, every day, there's no day that we don't report, you know.
The issue, Claire, is some of these things we say on this axis of the world have to become more serious issues. We drop a policy, it becomes a photo opportunity, and after that, we relax into tepiditude. We do not follow up issues. Small arms is gone beyond guns from Libya.
Yes, of course.
It is not. People even attempt to get these things in through the ports. So is there connivance somewhere? Small arms. I think President Obasanjo then started screaming about small arms a long time ago. Small arms are indeed killers. That's it.
All right.
Yeah, yes, there isn't nothing more to do.
Not much, really.
I would like to thank you for being around, and hope you enjoy your weekend, and see you on Monday.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the G20 summit concluded in New Delhi in India. It's Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service, and as a prompt for our conversation on the outcome of the just concluded G20 summit and Nigeria's participation therein, let's listen to this background report put together by our correspondent Ibrahim Dan Hamidu.
The G Summit, a forum consisting of the world's major economies, recently took place in India, providing a platform for leaders to discuss and address pressing global issues. Though not a member, Nigeria's presence at the summit was at the instance, the host India, who invited some countries to participate in line with the tradition of the summit. The participation of Nigeria was highly anticipated as it offered an opportunity for President Tinubu to engage world leaders and explore how Nigeria could collaborate with other nations on its development agenda and renewed hope. Notable resolutions at the G20 summit include world peace, food security, tackling climate change, ensuring inclusive growth, and the commitment to global vaccine equity and access in preparation against the world's next pandemic. Moreover, Nigeria participated in other sideline events such as the Nigeria-India Business Round Table. The Nigeria-India Business Summit focused on strengthening economic ties and exploring potential collaborations between the two nations. Apart from securing billions worth of investments to Nigeria from India, President Tinubu also struck multiple deals with Germany and South Korea with the aim of boosting greater economic opportunities for Nigeria with the leading economies of the world. During the summit, President Tinubu delivered a heartfelt message to Nigerians residing in India, where he emphasized the importance of their contributions to Nigeria's development and prosperity. President Tinubu's presence at the G20 provided an opportunity for him to highlight Nigeria's priorities and concerns on the global stage, such as renewable energy, agriculture, industrialization, steel development, and sustainable development. Furthermore, President Tinubu emphasized the need for increased international cooperation in addressing security challenges, particularly the fight against terrorism. Analysts are keen to know how Nigeria's participation will significantly contribute to the development of the country under the Renewed Hope agenda. What other takeaways are there from Nigeria's participation? When will Nigerians begin to reap the benefits? How can Nigerian businessmen take advantage of the opportunities provided by the summit to create wealth? These and more questions will be discussed by guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
Many thanks to you, Hamidu, for the background report and the questions that you have also raised. It's not just the analysts that are curious to know how Nigeria will benefit. Every one of us, we're all curious to know how this outing will translate to better living conditions and, of course, grow our economy. So we have our guests all ready for our conversation. I'll start the introductions with our guest who is joining us via Zoom, Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, and she's Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NITCA. She's joining us via Zoom. If we can see her, if she's here. All right, we hope she will join us in the course of our conversation. But also to join us via Zoom from New Delhi is Nigeria's High Commissioner to India, His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Sule. And there he is. Your Excellency, good morning and thank you for joining us all the way from India.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good afternoon from New Delhi.
You have to.
All right, we have two other guests who are with us for today's conversation. From Lagos, via Zoom, I would like to welcome Mr. Ade Adefeko. Ade Adefeko is an agri, trade, and foreign policy analyst, and he is also the honorary consul of Botswana in Lagos. He attended the Business Round Table in the course of the G20 summit in India. Mr. Adefeko, we're glad to have you on our program this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and also here in the studios is Musbah Dan Wahab. Musbah is NTA's State House correspondent, and he covered the G20 summit. And of course, in the course of the summit, we had him join us when we were, of course, having a conversation around Indo-Nigeria relations. Musbah, glad to welcome you back to our studios.
Good to be here, Kingsley.
Okay.
Claire, good morning.
All right, so let's begin with the High Commissioner who is in New Delhi, Ambassador Ahmed Sule. Ambassador Ahmed Sule, now fill us in with the optics of the G20 summit. How big was this?
Well, first, I would like to start by conveying my appreciation to Mr. President, His Excellency Bola Tinubu, for accepting to address the Nigeria-India President Round Table Business Conference, which is one of the highlights of the G20 sideline events, which Mr. President attended. During this Nigeria-India Round Table, we have been able to start some deals from major Indian business leaders. They made commitment to invest in several sectors of the Nigerian economy, especially power and steel, and also telecommunications, as well as power. Example, Jindal Steel and Power has committed to invest $3 billion to transform our iron and steel sector. Also, Skipper Steel Limited is a company that is in Nigeria, is committed to providing 20 megawatts, 100 for 20 megawatts, 100 megawatts, which is about $1.6 billion. and also Airtel that is in Nigeria is committed to adding more investment to the tune of $700 million, as well as Indorama, which is a petrochemical industry, is also committed to add their investment in Nigeria to boost their fertilizer production. They are committed also to put in more investment to the tune of $8 billion. Additionally, also, there is $1 billion which is for DICON, which is Defense Industrial Corporation of Nigeria, which is aimed at boosting our local production to 40% by the year 2027. So all in all, Nigeria was able to gather about $14 billion of pledges by Indian business leaders. Then the question is, how do we get this commitment come into actualization? What I will say is that the High Commissioner in India, in collaboration with the Indian High Commissioner in Abuja, as well as the host Minister of External Affairs and the business people, there's a need for us for the follow-up. There's a need also on the part of the government in Nigeria to create or set up a special task force or an implementation committee with a benchmark and timelines for evaluation and monitoring. I think when we do this, we'll be able to actualize the commitment made by the Indian people.
Thank you. I would like to start from the beginning to evaluate what this summit actually means. First, for Nigeria, we're not a member of the G20. President Tinubu was invited. What does this translate? What does it tell us about, maybe ranking or, global perception about Nigeria at the moment? And secondly, how important was this summit for Africa as a continent?
Well, first, inviting Nigeria to participate as guest country is an honor for Nigeria, and this is a recognition of our global role as the greatest, largest economy on the African continent, and also the biggest democracy on the continent. So our participation has given us the opportunity to voice our intention also of joining the G20 family. Well, we are happy and we appreciate the gesture made by the G20 for admitting Africa as a member. But Nigeria, too, consider we are the largest economy on the continent and also the biggest democracy on the continent. We're supposed also to be in the G20 family. Mr. President has started to socialize the idea with G20 members and all the relevant stakeholders, so that Nigeria too will subsequently be admitted into the G20 family. Our participation has opened doors for Nigeria to negotiate on behalf of Global South, which India is also spearheading too, because considering our population, we must have a voice. You see, G20 is a group that constitutes about 21 the largest world economies, and they represent 80% of the global GDP and 70% of the global trade, as well as 60% of the world population. So it's important for Nigeria also to be in this important platform, so that we will be able also to voice our own opinions, be in the decision making. Because when we are not in this kind of forum, we should change. We will not be part of the decision making in trying to bring policy of inclusivity that also has to do with developing countries. So our invitation by India under its presidency is very important, and we appreciate that. And Nigeria will continue to use this opportunity to talk to the relevant stakeholders in order to make our case that we also deserve to be in this important club or forum.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sule. It was Nigeria's aspiration under the Vision 2020 to become one amongst the 20 top economies around the world by year 2020. But of course, that didn't quite materialize, and year 2020 itself was more remarkable for the global shutdown on account of COVID-19. I want to bring in now Ade Adefeko. Mr. Adefeko, help some of our viewers understand what the G20 is all about in the first place. Some will hear about G7, some will hear about D8, and now G20. Of course, we know that there are other international institutions such as United Nations and so on and so forth. Well, how does the viewer understand the difference and the meaning or significance amongst these three entities I've just mentioned, D8, G7, and G20?
Well, thank you very much. It's just important to reiterate that G20 is the 20 largest economies in the world. Of course, you spoke to the fact that we had G8. The same way you have G8, you have G77. So there are different blocks and groups of economies in the world that have influence and power. And the ambassador spoke to the fact that it was important that Nigeria was at the G20. It just shows you the importance and the stature of Nigeria in the global committee of nations. And the G20, or which you can now call G21 or G22, depending on how you see it. Don't forget that AU now has a representative. AU is now representing the continent. A school of thought believes that rather than AU representing the continent, some countries should be part of G20 to make it a bit more expansive to probably G22 or G24 or G25. What is important is that G20 represents the 20 largest economies in the world. Of course, prior to now, we have spoken about BRICS, we have spoken about Mint, So all these multilateral agents, countries as well, or blocks, are important in the scheme of things. But G20, particularly the G20 summit I held in India, was very, very, very a very good outing for Nigeria and for the organized private sector that came to discuss, as it were, with their Indian counterparts on a bilateral level. Ambassador Sule spoke to the investments that came in, which is in the area of about $14 billion. That's a lot. $14 billion coming into Nigeria's economy will reflate this economy seriously, and I think it was a good step in the right direction. So a lot of deals were signed. Yes, there are MOUs, but those MOUs, it's important for those MOUs to be translated to real deals, as it were. And I think our being there, organized private sector particularly, being there is a testament to how seriously we are taken as a nation. And I think Nigeria is open for business, and what we just need, like the president said in one of his addresses, is that we need a mindset change. So Nigeria is open for business. We need a mindset change, enable environment to be provided, and just come on. Capital is mobile, okay? So capital is mobile, and is Nigeria ready for it? I think Nigeria is ready for it. Provide an enabling environment, remove all the hindrances and hiccups that will, inhibit us from doing business, and I think that's the way to go.
All right, Mr. Defeko, well, I'd like to stay with you. In a short while, we'll begin to unpack, the $14 billion package, that has come with investment offers from India. But let me also continue with looking at how the prospects or the potential that the G20 summit, has for Africa as a continent. Now that AU has been, added as a member of the G20, I'm wondering how that might help to, foster the integration, objective of most of the African continents. If you consider that in diverse areas, many of the African countries are divided, especially in the areas of economic policy, in the area of foreign policy and all that. Might this be, a gateway to finally achieving that integration that, we've been looking for?
Well, good question. You see, the school of thought believes that, don't forget that with the AU now and with what the AU is seeking to achieve with the African Continental Free Trade Area, $1.5 trillion economy, okay, and about 54 countries, opening itself to the world for trade and investment. It's a good time, but a school of thought believes that we'll be better off if we had countries representing our respective geographies. Maybe Nigeria representing West Africa, maybe South Africa representing Southern Africa, maybe Morocco representing North Africa, and and the likes. But it is what it is. EU has come in as a bloc. AU has come in as a bloc. But what we must try to do first is to make sure that we achieve what we call continental integration before we now go into global integration. So, but for us to have been, for AU to have been accepted, okay, as a member of G20 is to show you that we are taken seriously as a continent, and for us, we need to put our house in order to be able to take advantage of that. We are strong in the global polity in different areas. A lot of the minerals that are used for production of a lot of finished products in the world come from Africa, particularly from Congo DRC, from Nigeria, from Botswana, diamonds and the like. So we're a rich continent, but a rich continent that our voice should be heard. And I think that was loud and clear at the G20 summit in India. It just shows you that we're a force to reckon with, and that came to fore in India.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adefeko. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Now, let's return to our studios. Musbah Adan Wahab, tell us something. Was there a sense of urgency around the theme of the summit itself? One Earth, one family, one future. Or was it just another talk shop?
Well, I think they actually know what they want to achieve with the theme, but then we can see the commitment to togetherness. The watchword there was togetherness. How to look at the problems we're having together, how to find common solution, and how to forge ahead to form a common front to address all the global challenges. And these challenges, you know them, which include climate change, economic resilience, financial resilience, as well as multinational crime and terrorism. So if you want to really address all of these, there must be sincerity of purpose, like you have alluded to. So these countries that are member of this G20 or G21 as it is now, they know the enormity of these challenges we have at hand across the world, and they know that each country cannot address it individually, so they must come together. They must look at the solutions that can fit into the individual countries. The way Nigeria will address its own challenge will be different from South Africa, that's a member of G20, and of course USA, and we have all of this dynamism. So there must be a clear-cut solution which individual countries will bring contributions to, will contribute to, bring suggestions and on how they feel they should address it from their own perspectives, and then they find a common solution to the global challenge coming from the angle of G20.
Musbah, thank you. And I want to believe that during the meetings with, Nigerians living in India, I mean, you were also privileged to maybe chat with some of them. Apart from what, the president tabled before the summit, did you have any sense of what, those Nigerians, their, areas that they probably would like to invest in more?
Very well. Now, before I talk to what you have just asked, let's make it clear. Let's make it clear that G20, it's only the platform. It's the major platform. That was the main mission for which the president traveled to India. The business conference was just on the sidelines, so that Nigeria saw the opportunity to maximize, not just going to India to attend G20. And we must give kudos to the Nigerian
High
Commission in India, Ambassador Sule, we saw the efforts he put in. What he saw was, okay, since the president is coming to, or was coming to India, why not maximize this opportunity? Already he started a process in 2022, and when he saw the opportunity that India can do a lot more in Nigeria, they came together, mobilized all the investors in India, and then they came up with this Nigeria-India Business Council, which is like an agency to oversee and coordinate the business, the trade between Nigeria and India. So that was just on the sideline. So let me come to your question, which is about the investors. That presidential roundtable and business conference provided a big opportunity for Nigerian investors, because the president was there like an umpire. We had the Nigerian investors on one side and then the Indian investors on the other side. Okay, what are the issues? They have partners. The Nigerian investors, they've been partnering with Indian investors. So what are the issues? What have been the problem, the challenges you have been facing? How can we improve on the relations between you? So that was why the president was there. And each of them, apart from the open conference that people saw, the president met with individual investors to say, okay, how we're addressing the issue. And there was a case, a big case that the president already started with, and that's the issue of Indorama. Indorama was having a challenge in River State, and the president said it there. He gave the NNPC the challenge. GCO, look at this issue. Go and give me results in 21 days. I want to see how this business will move. Indorama business, petrochemical investor in Nigeria, is a big one.
What kind of challenge was it?
Well, you know? there are technical challenges that we cannot speak to openly. But the good thing is, the GCEO, on the instruction or directive of the president, came up with the solution in less than 21 days that the president gave him. It shows that these are the kind of leadership you want, not just to sit back and watch things happen. You must make things happen on your own as the president. You must provide the leadership that the country needs. So the president was there, and then he created a platform for both parties to mend fences and make it happen. And we saw, as a result of that, as a result of the solution found to the Indorama challenge in Nigeria, they came up with another investment to the tune of $7 billion US. You know what that means. So those are the things that
that's good news.
President has been able to achieve in India.
Let's away from the sidelines now to the main summit itself.
G-Summit.
Yeah, main summit itself. What kind of reception did President Tinubu receive amongst the members of the G20 plus one group as the men? Because it's new president of Africa's most populous country, and of course Africa's country with the most potential. So what kind of reception did he get?
It was a big one, Kingsley, I must tell you, because they always know that Nigeria is a big place in Africa. You cannot talk of Africa without talking of Nigeria. They know all of this. What we just needed otherwise is just to announce our seriousness, our commitment to development. And they probably or apparently have seen this in President Bola Tinubu, and that was why he got the welcome or the invitation in the first place by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. He was invited. You know, Nigeria is not a member of G20. Only South Africa in Africa is a member of G20. But for him, in the first place, to have received that invitation shows that they know that Nigeria has something to contribute. So when he was there, he was very clear that they saw that this country is now ready, probably from some of the policies he has been able to put in place before in his first 100 days. So they saw that this government is now ready for business. Let's bring them on board. Let's see how they can be part of this summit. But let me say something to what Mr. Adefeko said earlier, that we need more African countries to be part of this G20. It's not about just being part of it. You have to earn it. We are talking of big economies in the world. And South Africa is proven to be one ready in Africa. And they know that Nigeria is the biggest economy on the continent. So that's why they are trying to woo Nigeria now to the summits. And that's a bride. It was big welcome for President Tinubu. But we just hope that we know what we want and we will get what we want from them, not just being part of it, of the summit, of the group.
All right. We understand Honorable Abike Dabire Erewa, Chairman, Nigerian Diaspora Commission, NITCOM, has joined us. So just like to warmly welcome Honorable Abike Dabire Erewa to the conversation. Honorable Erewa, thank you very much for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to you.
So let's have your evaluation of the outing of Nigeria and, of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the G Summit. And for you, what does it mean for Nigeria in terms of global recognition?
Well, I'll limit myself to particularly this meeting with the diaspora in India. And the excitement was palpable. The room was very lively. Mr. President was down to earth. And he had a very, very engaging session with them. I know things happened. Problems were solved. The issues they brought to the table were resolved. And in fact, a young lady got a job. Another young lady who had come to India for medical, had her problems resolved. And a whole lot of issues that Nigerians were facing. Mr. President instructed us to follow up, and we've been doing just that. And beyond the meeting with the diaspora, from reports and all that coming out from inside the venue of the meeting, you could see that he was a beautiful bride. Everybody wanted to have a meeting with our president. Everybody wanted to do business with Nigeria because they see that the president really does mean business. And for the Nigerians in India, it was like, we all want to do something back home. We are excited about coming back home. When we come back home, these are the things we think we want to do in the city. And Mr. President advised them to always be good ambassadors of their country, wherever they find themselves. So it was a very fruitful meeting all the way through. And then, of course, the icing on the cake was a decision to just leave India, to go to the UAE, to Abu Dhabi, and solve the problem of the UAE. That showed the leader who is very, very proactive, believes in resolving issues as they arise, rather than wait and all that. So really, it was very, very successful in every sense of the word.
Honorable Abike, thank you very much there for the information that you have provided. While the summit lasted, we had a conversation on Indo-Nigeria relations, and incidentally, Musbah Udan Wahab, our correspondent, who was covering the summit because the State House correspondent joined us and spoke about the many business relationships that Nigeria and India have. But one issue that came out of that interaction last week was as follows, and we've listened to Mr. Adefeko a moment ago saying that on the sidelines, Nigeria was able to harvest commitments worth some $14 billion in terms of investment pledges. But we also asked the question, and I would like you to respond to this, assuming you got it from Nigerians who are in India. Investment shouldn't just be a one-way traffic. Mm-hmm. Are there issues, for instance, that Nigerian investors are having with trying to get a footprint in India itself?
Absolutely. And that is why you saw that a whole lot of Nigerian businessmen were in India. They were there because they wanted to do business with India. And I think what I saw coming out of that summit in India is more of South-South cooperation, more of looking towards, more businesses with countries like India. And a lot more will happen. I mean, look at, even in the diaspora hall there where we had the meeting, we had Mr. Tony Animelu, Haji Aboya Shagaya and Hakim Shagaya, Skipper, who is an Indian businessman doing business in Nigeria. We had an Indian man who is doing a lot of business between Nigeria and India, from Nigeria and India. And he has even relinquished his Indian citizenship and is a Nigerian, because in India you have a dual citizenship. We have the chairman, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So we had quite a number of businessmen that came there with the president to see what businesses Nigeria can do with India. In terms of, for instance, technological development, what also can we do and learn with them? They have made in India buses. Most of their buses are made in their country. They manufacture helicopters and all that. So really, it was, Mr. President also focused on a symbiotic relationship. We're doing business with you, but you're also doing business with us. And that is why India was even more, there was much more excitement and much more conversations around not just us. So it's not a one-way relationship. The businessmen didn't go there because India wanted to, because they also wanted to do business with India. So Mr. President's presence and that business summit opened the door for that kind of conversation. And I know some businessmen who remained in India to continue with their colleagues to see, how we can expand trade between both countries. So definitely it's a symbiotic relationship.
But, Erewa, I'd like to also ask that you help us to unpack. You described your, conversation with the Nigerians in diaspora in India as fruitful, very fruitful. I'd like for you to unpack, that a bit for us within context. We know that the Nigerians in diaspora are a source of, foreign exchange revenue for this country. Is there any kind of commitment? Were we able to extract any kind of tangible commitment that may require very simple, implementation framework?
Commitment in terms of business or in terms of our people there?
Yes, any kind of commitment from them, to give back, to plow back in their home country's economy, that would require, simple framework, not all the bureaucracies and all the rigid policy adjustments.
Well, for Nigerians in India, there were a few issues. For instance, when you go there to study, you get a student visa, you should come back when you're done. Because if you overstay your visa, then there's a problem with the authorities. So that was, a major area of concern. So if you overstay your visa, you have a problem with the authorities, and then it, becomes an issue. So one of the things is, how do you ensure that when you're done there, you return to your country? And then the Nigerians that are facing issues of overstay and all that, how do you resolve it? Or how do you intervene to ensure that, well, if you overstay, you return to your country? I think those were some of the issues that I had to discuss with them. And then in case of students in particular, a whole lot of, and the Nigerians there emphasized what the mission had been doing to intervene in cases like that affected them. So, a lot of ongoing issues in that regard are being resolved and all that. And a lot happens with the mission and the Nigerians there. And then what else? The fact that we don't need to be going to India for medical tourism. So we had, a lot of our people there, and what the government is doing to ensure that healthcare system in Nigeria was revamped. And one of the things about that town was that the ministers on that delegation, Minister of Trade, Minister of Communication, Minister of Budget and Planning, Minister of Finance, actually had a very, very long engagement with them. So those were issues that came up with the diaspora community and a few others. But basically speaking, is the fact that, there has to be mutual mutually beneficial relationship between both countries, India and Nigeria. And I think that was highly emphasized at the town hall with the president.
All right, Honorable Abika,
but I think that's what I got from what you asked me.
Honorable Abika, thank you. Let's pause you in the meantime and bring in again Adefeko. Mr. Adefeko, I want to ride on some of the issues that Abika has already addressed, and part of which you touched on earlier in terms of the business roundtable and the investment pledges totaling some 14 billion US dollars. If you are there, Mr. Adefeko, yeah, thanks, you popped up on the screen now. Many would argue, yeah, that these are big ticket deals. Congratulations. But that if you were to examine much more deeply trade and business relations between India and Nigeria as of today, it would appear that India tends to see Nigeria as a source mostly for raw materials. I mean, we see them take away our agricultural produce, of course, add value, whatever, and then get them around the world. And we've also had some instances of them dealing in iron and steel in this country, and some of it relating to scrap metals with some of the security issues around all of that. Are these matters that came up, for instance, that, look, set up and add value to our primary produce in the country?
Well, what is important is that conversations were had. Don't forget that the bulk of exports of Nigeria to India is oil. Okay, so that's the bulk of what we export to India, and to a large extent, you know that India is very strong in the area of agriculture, and Nigeria is strong in agriculture as well, primary products. But Nigeria adds value to some of its primary products as well and exports to India and the Far East. So cocoa, processed cocoa, processed cashew, processed sesame. So it's not as if we'll send raw materials strictly. But what is important is to make sure that we have a strong balance of trade. And that strong balance of trade can only happen if we make sure that it's a two-way street. Okay? So right now, there's a lot we can do in the area of technology, which India is very strong. There's a lot we can do in the area of steel. Of course, you know that India is very strong in the area of steel. They're very strong in the area of technology. They're very strong in the area of payment systems. So there's a lot that we can benefit from India. But like Honorable Abika spoke to, it's a two-way. It's bilateral. It's mutual. Okay. So, and it must be reciprocal. And as an addendum to what she spoke to, at that same diaspora diaspora round table, which the president, it's important to note that diaspora remittances from Nigeria is in the neighborhood of about $20 billion, while diaspora remittances from India is in the neighborhood of about $100 billion. So that's about 5 times. So I don't know the quantum of what comes from India, but if you look at Nigeria's total diaspora remittances back home, it's in the neighborhood of about $20 billion. I think as at about a year or two ago. So that's a lot. But we can do more. We can do better. So for me, I think what is important and the role of the Diaspora Commission in the scheme of things is very, very important and instructive. So you find out that the diaspora have a voice, okay, and they have a conduit to relate, okay, which is very, very important in every country we go to, and India was not an exception. So for me, I think the Nigeria Indo-Nigeria relations is a bilateral two-way. It's a two-way street, and it's something that I think we must continue to work on and to improve.
Mr. Adefeko, part of the deal struck at the G20 summit was in the area of in the power sector. Okay, let me take in the steel sector, where Jindal Steel Power Limited pledged an investment of about, according to this data, $3 billion in iron ore processing to aid Nigeria's strive for industrialization. If you may, give us an idea of the component of this investment in this area.
What you have to understand is that, iron ore deposits we have in Itakwe in Kogi State. So, and don't forget that to show the importance and to underscore the importance of steel in Nigeria, we have a minister of steel, okay, who happens to be from Kogi State as well. So the importance of steel, importance of iron ore, is something that is it's important for you to have your steel development at the forefront of your industrial takeoff. And India is very strong in that area. And again, it's important to speak to the fact that a lot of these companies that signed MOUs with Nigeria, some of them already have investments in Nigeria already. Okay, Skipper, for example, already has, I think they have something in the area of medicine. I think they have an eye clinic in Nigeria already, which they're doing that healthcare. Indorama already have petrochemical, so they're just ramping up their investments. So some of these investments are additional investments. Some of them already have investments in Nigeria, but they're just ramping up and making more commitments and pledges. Aside from, they made the pledges, but those commitments are things that we should now hold them to, okay? As you know, a lot of these things were signed in India, will now come back to Nigeria, sit down and review. So the Chamber of Commerce of Nigeria, for example, will make sure that they see to the logical conclusion. But don't forget that these respective investments are investments in which the Trade and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, okay, and will follow through. Okay, the respective ministries in charge will make sure that the conversations that were had in India will continue in Nigeria, and will make sure that what is promised or what is pledged is delivered. So a promise made should be a promise kept. So that's what we should hold them to.
Well, thank you, Mr. Adefeko. On the last point that you've just raised, that should take me back to Honorable Abike. Honorable Abike, let me bring you again into the conversation. We've seen over the years since your headship of NITCOM, the interactions that the former head of state and now the current head of state, usually when they go out, the interactions that they have with Nigerians, and you also, I believe, have the opportunity of listening in on some of the other major engagements. I was just wondering, has NITCOM taken time to perhaps do an audit of what goes on in the course of those interactions, and then see what is able to germinate back home? Because we have had a conversation on Good Morning Nigeria to say, for instance, that yes, our president goes out in the immediate aftermath. There is a lot of excitement. I give you many examples. Sochi, President Muhammadu Buhari was at Sochi in Russia. That's with the Russo-African Summit. He was also in Saudi Arabia. At Sochi, there were pledges around developing our steel industry with refinery, Aramco in Saudi Arabia, and yet nothing seemed to have gained traction after a while. Are these matters that NITCOM is taking an audit of and be showing that it can direct more focus as to what needs to get implemented?
No, that would be beyond my remit. In terms of commitment, I'll take what Mr. Adefeko said. In terms of commitment, I think it's left for the relevant MDAs to follow up. But in terms of the question you asked, we focus on our people there. And as he said, and thank you, Mr. Adefeko, it was a very integral part of our meeting with the diaspora there and played a very major role. Our own is, what do we follow up as far as our people there are concerned? Like we keep saying, we are the embassy here in Nigeria. For instance, in issues that arose there, we've had follow-ups with them. We communicate with them. Okay, what is going on and what else do we do? How do we solve ABC? So we do that. And then we give our report to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who transmits it to Mr. President. So also that is a given as far as we are concerned. Russia, for instance, whatever issue came out that affected Nigerians there, it is there for us to follow up. So as far as the diaspora is concerned, we follow up and ensure that we get the outcome, and you get an instruction actually that you must do ABCD. But in terms of what you come up with a trade, okay, $14 billion was signed, how do you follow up? I think that will be left to the relevant MTA, so I can't speak much about that. But talking about, back to what Mr. Adifeko said, the Indian diaspora, they don't meet the largest in the world, but they have the largest diaspora in the world. And for Nigeria to be doing $26 billion, we're not doing badly. We are the largest in Africa. And then India, to tap into its diaspora, created a full ministry for the diaspora. So have the Ministry for Overseas Indians. And India is one country that the Commission has had to go to twice. And I want to thank our ambassador, who is on the program, for hosting us on one of those visits when we want to learn what India has done with its diaspora. So my going there was like the third time. So we've gone to learn about their diaspora, what they do. So they had a full ministry for overseas Indians that dealt strictly with the diaspora. So we have a commission, but I hope that we get more funding and more support. There's not much you can do with a capital of 47 million naira a year, but with what we have done, I think we've done very well. And then India does not have a dual citizenship as we have. We have a dual citizenship. It can be both. I told you about the Indian businessman that chose to be Nigerian and left his Indian passport. But they keep like 25-year visa stay. They do not do diaspora voting. We are trying to do diaspora voting. So, and then they give incentives for their diasporas to encourage them to come back home. You want to set up a hospital, you've schooled abroad, they make it very easy for you. Easier than a foreigner to come and set up there. And one thing also in India is that they will employ their own people first before employing another person. So you look for a job in India, you can't even get a job if an Indian hasn't gotten a job. That is commitment, that is patriotism, that is their own style. So a lot to learn from India, no doubt about that. And we as a commission, they also have a diaspora day, January 9th every year. We also have a diaspora day, July 25. We have a diaspora investment summit. They have their diaspora day is like a national day. India is going to have the Prime Minister of UK is an Indian. About 3 prime ministers, 3 former presidents have been of Indian origin. So we are just starting and getting our diaspora. But I know that we will surpass India the way we're going. So a lot to learn from India. A lot we are learning from them. And we'll continue to do that as we grow as a commission.
All right, Honorable Abike Dabirerewa, thank you. We'll again put you on pause for a while and go back to India, where Nigeria's High Commissioner, His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Sule. We'll just take this one from the ambassador just before we call for the break. And Your Excellency, I'd just like to talk a little about death infrastructure for, the African countries that were in attendance. Some of these countries are burdened by that challenge, and of course probably will not have the muzzle to reach out to the international financial institutions. And we know that the source of these debts could come from challenges like climate change, for instance, which is not the fault of many of the countries, attending, that is the AU members. So is the G20 summit that held, could it be a platform, to broker change in these regards?
Yeah, well, let me also add that, during the President's Round Table, the statement delivered by President Buhari have moved the Indian businesses to make that commitment. And during his own address, he clearly stated that we need to improve our agriculture by to give for value addition, and also talk about education, where we need collaboration with Indian universities. And in the health sector, he clearly stated that he wants collaboration from India, whereby we can reduce or and the long run stop the medical tourism. And regarding infrastructure you talk about, we have made we requested Indian businesses in partnership with our Nigerian business also to collaborate and improve our infrastructures, especially like steel production, infrastructure like power, and so on, as well as defense and defense cooperation. So, and I would like to also make it clear that this Nigeria-India business presidential round table came into being as a result of the establishment of the Nigeria-India Business Council, which I did last year in collaboration with the Indian Comparative Industries and the NIBC. We come up with the idea of having presidential round table as a sideline during the G20 meeting, which Mr. President graciously accepted to address, and his statement and his assurances encourage Indians to come out and make such important commitment. So his presence has really greatly assisted in making them to feel more comfortable, having confidence in Nigeria, and to invest more. And additionally, many people do not know what G20 is. Like I mentioned earlier, G20 is a group that consists of 20 countries, 19 individual countries. One is the European Union. Now that aim is added, whether it will be called G21 or G20, G21, it remains to be seen. So, the G20 was formed in 1999 post-Asian financial crisis as a forum for finance ministers and central bank governors of the member countries to deliberate on issues of addressing the financial crisis and to have a way forward in stabilizing and addressing these financial issues. So I thought I should make this small addition for people to understand what G20 itself means.
Ambassador Ahmed Sule, thank you very much there for your explanation. And the other guests, we'll pause everyone and go on this short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back here. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live from NTA's headquarters studios in Abuja. Ambassador Sule, I want to return to you, and let's attempt to consider some of the conclusions from the G20 summit. Some persons would argue that the more global leaders discuss some of the issues around the economy, the financial system, climate change, and energy, it would appear that the less progress is being made. Ambassador Sule, where appear that we seem to have lost you. So, of course, that question was going to also come to our correspondent, Musbah Dan Wahab, here in our studios. Musbah, it would appear that the more global leaders talk about the global economy, talk about the global financial system, climate action, and energy, it would appear that that's when the numbers get even more worrisome. We're discussing economy, and the poorer countries are getting even poorer. We're talking about climate action. It appears to be a monologue. The more advanced countries are not shifting in terms of financing of climate action. A country like Nigeria, for instance, has its roadmap to say, look, gas is our transition energy. What was there any shift from at the end of the G20 summit on this occasion, or again just one more indication that yes, we've spoken, and we'll move on to that. We understand that the ambassador is back. I don't know whether he heard my question. If he did, let him take it. Ambassador, if you heard my question, please take it.
Come again, please.
All right, I was saying that it would appear that the more world leaders at different fora discuss some of the items that were also on the table at the G20 summit, the less traction the world makes in seeking solutions to those problems. We talk about the economy, the financial system. Poorer nations are getting even poorer. You talk about climate action. No one is shifting in terms of financing climate action. And Nigeria, of course, is saying, look, our roadmap has to do with transition energy, which is gas. So I'm just asking, in general, as part of the outcomes of the G20 summit, did the needle move in any positive direction?
Well, if you are talking about the outcome of the G20 summit, I would simply say the leaders reaffirmed their commitment to sustainable development, promoting bilateral cooperation among states, nation state, and also inclusive policy, economic policy, which touches both the developed and developing countries.
Ambassador
Are you
Sule,
with me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I say part of the outcome of the leaders summit is that the leaders has reaffirmed their commitment to sustainable development, promoting multinational cooperation among countries, as well as inclusivity in economic policy that touches countries around the world. Which these policies has to do with both developed and developing countries. That's the country of the North and the country of the global South.
Sule, back to our studios here. Musbah, again, in terms of the optics at the summit, you are a reporter, and using your lenses as a correspondent, what was it you found unique in terms of the interactions amongst the world leaders who were at that summit, and particularly situating our president in that matrix?
Well, let me say it, Kingsley, that most of the sessions by the leaders were behind closed doors. But speaking on the declaration, New Delhi declaration that they read out after the summit, it's only another commitment renewing their commitment to what they had. Already there's a template for what they want to do on economic matters, on climate change, on fight against corruption, terrorism, and all of that. So what they have just come to do with the theme that you read out earlier, our earth, our one family, one future, is now to look ahead. We have gone this far. This is where we are. So what are we going to achieve? Then the declaration has come a lot of points in that, and what basically they are looking at now is a more inclusive world. That's how do we get a faster result? How do we get a better result from all we have been doing? And part of what they have recommended is that, okay, we need to invest more. Let's try to see how to improve the economy amongst our nations and, of course, in the world. How to invest more to address climate change from our own side, from individual countries. So the summit has come and gone. But the declaration now, like Kingsley earlier said, it's only time now that let us know whether they have meant what they have said, what they have, the declaration they have rolled out. We want to see the changes, their sincerity to this, not just to come and declare that, oh, this is what we want to do. But I did see the appraisal of the previous ones. Those were part of the closed sessions they had. But from the declaration, they are looking ahead with more commitments, with more vigor to see how we can tackle all the challenges, including terrorism.
Hopefully, Musba, hopefully. Let me take my question to Mr. Ade Adefeko. And I just liked the way he put his evaluation of the whole summit, of course, in one of his write-ups. Mr. Adefeko, you said for Nigeria, it's yet our morning, and your hope is that the outcome becomes our afternoon. I don't know if Mr. Adefeko is still with us. So one area, again, where investment offer was struck is the power sector, where commitments have been made, by one of the firms to help ramp up our, power generation to about 2,000 megawatts. And we all know we all know the plagues within our power sector. So what is our understanding of what needs to be facilitated, to enable these offers materialize?
Well, I'm sure you noticed in one of my write-ups I said for our tomorrow we must give our today. So it's important for us to do that. For our power sector, I think power sector reforms are on, and what we just need to do is to make sure that we plug properly and we have what we call better interconnectivity. Okay, power is a whole value chain. There's transmission, there's distribution, there's generation. So we need to achieve a nexus. And don't forget that there's an executive order that was signed by Mr. President, which allows states to take charge of their power needs. So everyone, the sovereigns, the subnationals can take care of their power needs. So, but the subnationals need support. I'm sure you are aware that just yesterday we had a collapse of the grid, and but luckily I think it has come back up now. So we need a lot of assistance from the likes of India. It's in the spirit of what we call South-South cooperation. So for us in the power sector, we need to ramp up. Okay, what we are doing is not good enough. Look at South Africa, for example, as a country. They are generating over 60,000 megawatts. Okay, for about 60 to 70 million people. Look at us, over 200 million people who are struggling to generate between 10 and 20,000 megawatts. So there's a long way to go, but it's not all gloom, which is why to a large extent when we go for summits like this, when we have bilateral meetings, those bilateral meetings are things that we should follow through. So what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So we have already gotten commitments. Those commitments we must hold. Those who are promised, okay, to hold them to account for them to deliver on the promises they've made. So we're looking forward to what Indorama has pledged. We're looking forward to what Jindal has pledged, and on the power sector as well, promises that have been made. We're hoping that those promises will be promises that will be kept.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adefeko. Once again, the chair of the Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabiri-Ereo, I want to bring you in again. One aspect, we touched on it briefly earlier, but for further elaboration, we do know that expenditure on healthcare abroad is one of now the major sources of our forex outflows. At the interaction with Nigerians in diaspora in India, which is one of the major destinations for Nigerians in terms of health tourism, was there an indication from Nigerians out there as to what we could do to begin to grow our capacity in terms of healthcare delivery back home, capacity and quality? Honorable Abike, did you get my question?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, like I said, the ministers that were there touched a lot on that, on what the plans are by this administration to put a stop to medical tourism. And it turns out that the two ministers of health, Dr. Pati and Dr. Alausa, actually came from the diaspora to serve in this administration, and they're both in charge of health. So they reeled out quite a number of policy issues and practical steps this administration is determined to take as a critical reforms in the healthcare sector. So that came up actually, and the role that the diaspora can play has always been a main issue. Even beyond India, 70% of Black doctors, Association of Black Doctors in America, 70% of them are Nigerians. So we're working on a program that can get these doctors together. We're not saying come back home. We're saying what can you do to impact on the healthcare industry in Nigeria? And you know what the good news is beginning to happen. In the last couple of years, we've had our doctors in the diaspora come to set up hospitals here in Nigeria. But you wouldn't believe that one of the best cancer centers in the world is right here now in Nigeria, in Lagos. One of the best hospitals, private hospitals, is also there, Duchess and a few others. Here, also in Abuja, about 3 or 4. They pulled their resources together to come here and set up world-class hospitals. So imagine we have much more of such hospitals and then work on what, for instance, India does. At the end of the year, all these doctors in the diaspora that have come back home to India to set up, at the end of the year, a certain percentage of the profit is channeled into providing for the less privileged. I don't know whether it's a rule, but it's done in every hospital in India that has been set up by them. So they get a part of their profit and is now used to take care of those who can afford the Medicare. So like I said, a lot to learn from India. And in our own case, we're pulling the resources of our expertise. And that happened in India. You say the president talk to you, seeing the president being the #1 ambassador of his own country helps a lot. So a lot of conversations around that. And like you said, what we want are results. And we have a lot of professionals coming home, again, talking about healthcare, doing medical missions, which is very, very good, which has impacted a lot. But how can these medical missions turn to something concrete and then turn to permanent healthcare solutions? So that is a big conversation on the table. And I'm sure with the 2 ministers of health, the conversation has started. And I believe we'll be talking about implementation and reforms in our healthcare sector. Now, the lady that told the president, she's been going to India for 10 years to treat her ailment. And she believes that when these things are in place, she does not have to go there anymore. And I even told her about the cancer center in Lagos. And when she returns after this surgery, she will be going there to see whether she can do a follow-up there. So, like we've heard on this program, is leadership, Nigeria is work in progress. And one thing I also saw about India is the strict discipline. With the whistle, they still use whistle, the policemen, and you better don't disobey. And India is moving from a developing, leaving us from a developing country. So a lot to learn and a lot to do.
All right, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, thank you. We are eating, into our extra time, as they would say in football. But just a quick last one here from the studio, from Musbao, just in 60 seconds, if you may. I just would like to know if there was any commitment to, redeem the pledge by Western countries made, on the issue of climate change. African nations just commit a little less than 3% to climate change. And in 2009, there was an agreement to commit $100 billion to mitigating and adaptation of climate change consequences. Was there any commitment in that regard?
Yeah, they renewed the commitments, and that's to invest more in that, to ensure that all the nations involved make their necessary contribution. But if I may just quickly add, what the president here is saying that we are not contributing to the extent of the tax you're giving us. You want us to contribute big, just like other developed countries that are contributing huge to these climate disasters. We are not generating that
amount of emission.
Yeah, so we must get our contribution must be proportionate with the kind of amount of damage we do to the world. And so I hope that the president will follow through and see how
all right,
Muswa
Adam will have our State House correspondent, of course, joining us live here in the studio. Thank you very much, Musba. Let me also quickly appreciate Ade Adefeko, who is an agriculture, trade, and foreign policy analyst. He joined us, of course, from Lagos via Zoom. Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, Chairman, NITCOM, also joined us via Zoom from Lagos. And the High Commissioner to India, His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Soleh, joining us via Zoom from New Delhi. We'd like to appreciate all of you and thank you. Please do have a very pleasant day. All right.
So that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you for tuning in. The program returns on Monday at 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves while you enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. I'd like to thank all of you. First-time watchers, do have a very big weekend.
living room, office,